Good morning, or, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on when and where you're watching this from. But good something to you. So, I feel like it's time for an update video simply because I haven't really done any lately, and I've just been kind of sharing stories of what it's like to experience the symptoms I've been going through lately. And I would like to kind of do an overview and give a realistic update on what's been going on. Not to say that my other videos aren't realistic, I always share in the most authentic and real way possible. It's just that sometimes when you share one specific aspect, it kind of skews and like the perspective and gives a certain impression. And of course, it's a video. It's difficult sometimes to express reality as it is, even though I always try to do my best. Sometimes that's not necessarily as it comes across. So before we get into that, I did make like a list of all the symptoms and everything that I want to go through to make sure I don't forget anything, because there's quite a lot. There's just two things I want to mention before. One of them I've mentioned in the previous video, it just felt important to mention again, and that is I just wanted to make it clear that I'm not suffering in silence. I'm not an idiot who's not taking any medication, who's in constant pain, staying at home because I'm too stubborn to tell anyone. No, no, no. I keep my pivot nurse updated on everything. She's in constant contact with all my doctors whenever something needs to be done, whether I need a prescription for something, whether I need to shift something, whether I need a scan, whether I need to see someone, whatever that is, whatever the need is, I always go through her in order to get that, and my team always does their best to take care of me. So I just wanted to make that once again very clear. I'm not an idiot who's suffering in silence. I am keeping my medical team up to date on everything. In fact, I don't understand why some people would assume that I'm suffering needlessly. That just seems dumb to me. Not the people who assume that. It just seems dumb. Like, why would I do that? It's not logical. So I just wanted to reiterate that once again. Second thing is, as I kind of briefly skimmed over in the beginning, sometimes through video, because it's a storytelling format, it's video, it's pre-recorded, we can't have that back and forth. And yes, you can ask questions in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. It's not exactly the same, and sometimes that kind of gives a false impression of what I'm going through. Whether it gives the impression that it's worse than it is or not as bad as it is. As an example, it probably seems like my coughing really isn't that bad because most of the time when I film my videos, I'm not coughing that much. I don't know why. For some reason, when I'm recording, when I'm basically giving a speech, there is not that much coughing. As opposed to having a conversation, that back and forth for some reason really triggers my coughing and makes it worse. So it really depends on the situation. So throughout the day, obviously, I cough a lot. I take the cough syrup to try to avoid that. I take ice cubes whenever needed. I do whatever I need to manage it as much as I can. But yes, I am coughing frequently throughout the day, sometimes uncontrollably. And that's one of the things that kind of gives a false impression because for some reason, when I'm speaking to the camera like this, it doesn't trigger my coughing or not as much as having a normal conversation does. So as a result of that, it probably gives a false impression that, oh, the coughing really isn't that bad. So I just wanted to put that out there so you're aware that, there are probably false expectations or false impressions as a result of me sharing these stories and as a result of the medium that I'm using. So I just wanted to put that out there. All right, now that we've had that covered, and I just realized like, wow, I just wasted 4 minutes explaining that, but whatever. Let's get into the symptoms. So let's go one at a time. I'll give you an update on everything regarding that, and then we'll move on to the next. So first one is breathing. It's definitely better than it was during the first 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks after radiotherapy were the absolute worst. Over the last couple days, that has definitely gotten better. Not to say it's back to normal, far from being back to normal. And during the day, it's mostly fine. When I walk around, although to be fair, I haven't really walked that much, and it varies from day to day, it's not as bad as it used to be. Like I can walk relatively normally for varying distances. That's the thing. It varies. It's difficult to judge, but it's definitely better than it was. There is, however, still the issue of I need to sleep half seated. I can't really sleep on my side because that causes pains in other areas and stuff like that. And a lot of the times when I do that, I wake up in the middle of the night and I have difficulty breathing. And in the morning, what has been happening every single morning lately is I wake up and it feels like my lungs are heavy. That's the best way to describe it. And like heavy, like they've like closed through the night and it's just difficult to breathe. And it's like I feel like that pressure on my lungs. It's a little bit kind of like heartburn, except instead of being like, like heat in this section, it feels like pressure, and I just kind of like want to like just press on my chest and like crack it and have that release of kind of what you do whenever your back is like constricted, and then you snap your like you snap your back and you're like and there's just that release of pressure. I wish I could do that with my chest. Unfortunately, I can't. So the breathing overall is better than it was, but it's still definitely not back to normal. And I'm just really looking forward to being able to lie down normally, or at least somewhat normally in a somewhat comfortable position, and being able to have a restful night and wake up actually feeling rested and not like I'm out of breath. Like that is one of the worst things. So, yes, the breathing is better, but definitely not back to normal, and it's still keeping me from sleeping properly and normally, and that in the long run does become exhausting. Next thing is the coughing. We kind of discussed that already, so I won't go into too much detail. It really varies throughout the day, throughout the night, and it's a mixture of both dry cough and wet cough, and there's no predicting what's going to happen. In the past, it was the wet cough, so like the very deep cough with phlegm coming up. That's what would trigger the uncontrollable coughing bouts, and that's what would sometimes lead to me throwing up. Whereas the dry cough is just like small coughs throughout the day that are just kind of annoying, and if you cough too much, it just ends up irritating the throat. So that has gotten a little better, but definitely not back to normal, and it's kind of hard to judge exactly the state of that because it varies so much throughout the day, from day to day, throughout the night, and everything. So I am taking the cough syrup they prescribed to me for that. I am taking ice throughout the day whenever it seems necessary. So I'm just doing my best to deal with it. But yeah, it is better. Just once again, not back to normal, and it's kind of hard to judge. Next thing, my leg. That is one of the things that has gotten much, much better in the last, I'd say maybe 3 days. So there was a period where it just hurt super intensely. And lately, it's gotten to the point where I still take the Tylenol because I don't want to get to the point where it's like I'm back suffering. So for a period of time, probably a couple more days, I'm still going to take it. But I only take one pill instead of two every 4 hours. So I take one when I wake up, take one around, let's say, noon, one around 4, and one around 8 before I go to bed. And in the last 2 nights, I haven't had to take any during the night. Like sometimes I wake up, it's a little painful, but not enough that I feel the need to take a pill, and not enough that it's going to keep me from sleeping. So on that front, things seem to be doing very, very well. I don't know what caused it. I'm just very happy that it seems to be getting better each and every day. Next thing is headache. That's unrelated to the most recent radiotherapy I got. It's related to the original radiotherapy I got in my brain. I just wanted to talk about it because part of the symptoms and everything I'm experiencing. So it's very, very rare at this point that I get headaches. I no longer feel that pressure in my head that I once did. And the good news about that is today is in fact the first day that I lowered the dose yesterday, which means that now I'm down. Well, I mean, it's the same level as before. I've been down to 0.5 mg per day for the last 2 weeks, but yesterday it went down to 0.5 mg every other day. And since today's the second day, of that new level. Today is the first day that I'm not going to be taking anything to reduce the swelling in my head since at this point it's probably been like 3 months, maybe more. So very excited about that. Don't know what to expect, but given how well it's been going lately on that front, I'm assuming everything's going to be fine. So hopefully, if everything goes well on that front, by 2 weeks from now, I'll be completely off those drugs. And hopefully by then my body will have gotten accustomed to not having that in my body anymore, and my appetite will have gone back to normal. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers on that front. Which leads us to the next thing, the appetite. Still hasn't come back, but it's not as bad as before. Like before, it's like I had zero appetite, plus just the thought of eating kind of made me nauseous and made me sick. Now I'm still not hungry, but I no longer feel nauseous at the mere thought of eating. And I found certain foods that I can consume that don't seem to affect my body too much, that give me the things I need, and I'm able to make it throughout the day and not feel weak, not feel lightheaded, not feel like I'm going to pass out. So on that front, even though yes, I'm probably not eating as much as I should, I am eating as much as I can, and it seems to be sustaining me. I am probably slowly losing weight, and it's something I need to adjust and fix with time. But for now, that seems to be kind of heading in the right direction as well. Which leads into the next thing, the throwing up. Um, Before I started taking medication for that, because yes, I was prescribed medication. I started taking it yesterday. I throw up almost every single day. It would vary depending on what I ate, when I ate, and when I'd cough and stuff like that. So it wasn't consistent. There wasn't like one period of there. It was like, oh, that's the time to throw up. It's just it would happen frequently. Yesterday was the first day I started taking the anti-nausea medication they prescribed me. And I didn't throw up yesterday, so I don't know if I just got lucky or if it's working. I'm going to cross my fingers and assume it's working, and that today I will also not throw up, and that problem is now taken care of. Next thing is the sleeping. Kind of briefly mentioned it before. Just going to go into a little more detail. Once again, I'm sleeping half seated in my bed, which isn't so bad when I first fall asleep, but it's just like throughout the night it becomes very uncomfortable. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't flip onto my side. That makes the breathing too difficult. I can't go much lower. Once again, breathing too difficult. And if I try to adjust my position in any way, but just like very, very slight variations, it just ends up hurting or causing issues when it comes to coughing or breathing. So I'm pretty much stuck in that position. And as a result of that, I just don't have very good sleep and wake up most of the time exhausted. Next thing, medication. I kind of covered that. Went down, as I mentioned, for the brain, and there's only 2 weeks left. Aside from that, I continue to take the medication to avoid having convulsions or seizures, depending on the word you want to use. Still taking the vitamins they prescribe for the bones and everything. And I'll keep taking that for a while, since I may or may not. At this point, it's honestly very unclear. I don't know if the rib was broken or not. Maybe it's just a very, very small break, which is why it's not that painful. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. Whatever it is, I want to make sure that my bones are strong enough so this doesn't keep happening. And if it's something else, well, we'll figure out what it is eventually. It's really not that bad. It's not causing that much pain. It's more like something in the background that I feel every once in a while, so really not that bad. Aside from that, other medication, I don't really take anything else at this point, which is nice, aside from anti-nausea medication, but that's temporary. Cough syrup, once again, temporary. So the one that's been the main one I've been taking for the last 3 months, that'll soon be taken care of. And vitamins one day, or like the the calcium and vitamin D for the bones. That in a couple months I can stop, but it's not really bad for the body, so that's not really a big deal. And then I'll same for the cough syrup, same for the anti-nausea medication. So soon I'll just be down to taking the anti-convulsion medication, which I'm really looking forward to, because I don't really like medication. Like, yes, it's very useful. Yes, I've appreciated everything it's done for me. It's just I try to avoid it as much as I can. Not meaning that I avoid it and as a result of that I suffer. It's just like if I don't need it, I don't take it. I don't want to, you know, take it unnecessarily. So that's the medication front. And mindset, honestly, yesterday when I was lying in bed, um, I was actually feeling pretty good to the point where there were a few moments where I'm just smiling for no reason and feeling that sense of gratefulness and gratitude and appreciation for the world and everything. And I'm just like, wow, that is a feeling I haven't felt in a very long time, like a good month, maybe 2 months, because of everything I've been going through. It's just been very, very difficult to get to that mindset, to that space. And it felt good to be there, even if it was just briefly. And yes, I'm looking at the time, I'm realizing it's going over time, but it's not that bad because I did some research after yesterday's video that was, I think, like 18 minutes long. And turns out that TikTok no longer has a limit of 10 minutes. You can now go up to 30 minutes. So turns out I don't need to worry so much about the time. I do kind of like the 10-minute mark. It seems to be a good amount of time to share everything, to go into detail without it being too long. So I'm still going to try to stick to that time. I'm just not going to be as strict for the times where I do need to go over time. As an example, now we're at 16 and a half minutes, so not really that big a deal. I'm going to share whatever needs to be shared, go into as much detail as I need to, and whatever time that ends up being is the time it ends up being. I'm not going to stress about that as much as I used to. Or, at all at this point. I don't know why I said as much. Yeah, there's no reason to stress about this. So that's pretty much been the update. If you have any questions, if there's anything that I forgot, anything you want to know, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. And I just want to thank you once again for allowing me to cough when I need to. Wow. I should have ended this video 30 seconds ago. I just want to thank you for watching, for subscribing, for leaving comments, for, everything that you do, for supporting me, for being so kind, for praying, for all the things that you do for me, for this channel, for sharing stories of what you go through, what you went through, what your loved ones are going through or went through. I know a lot of people appreciate that, so I just want to thank you for, being a part of this community, because I think of you as my YouTube family, and I'm very, very grateful for you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for everything you do for me and for each other. And hopefully, the content that I create and what I'm going through can either provide some sort of entertainment or motivation, or that you get something out of it. So thank you for that, and let's find out if I missed the button. Yes, I did.